Welcome to Security Sunday. This is where we take the big cybersecurity stories from the past week and really unpack them for you.
Yeah, cut through the noise a bit.
Exactly. We try to filter out all the clutter and just focus on what you actually need to know, the key threats, the new tactics, that kind of thing. It's a lot to keep up with.
It really is. Almost a full-time job sometimes.
So let us do some of the heavy lifting for you. And speaking of support, Security Sunday is brought to you by Sysnet Shield.
Ah, yes. Great folks.
If you need top-tier penetration testing or red teaming, really finding out where your weaknesses are, you should check them out. That's sysnetshield.com.
Definitely worth looking into if security is a priority, which it should be.
Right. So what's been on the radar this week? What's the overall picture look like?
Well, it's been another, let's say, active week. We're seeing a mix, really. Some very sophisticated, targeted stuff.
Like state-sponsored level.
Potentially, yes. But also, broader threats hitting platforms lots of people use, like WordPress. It really drives home that, everyone needs to pay attention, from individuals right up to big companies.
Okay, let's start with WordPress then, because, yeah, so many people run sites on it or visit them daily. I heard something about a fake security plugin. That sounds bold.
It is, isn't it? But a nasty irony, really.
Yeah.
Attackers are basically preying on people trying to improve security.
Right. They search for a security tool and bam!
Exactly. They trick admins into installing malware instead. These fake plugins pop up with names like wp-antimalware-bot.php.
Okay, sounds vaguely official-ish.
Right. Or other names we've seen are addons.php, wp-console.php.
Yeah.
Even things like wp-performance-booster.php or just scr.php. The point is they sound like they could be legitimate system files or tools.
Sneaky. So if someone falls for it, installs one of these, what actually happens? Sounds like it gives the attackers a lot of power.
Unfortunately, yes. It's pretty much handing over the keys. Once it's active, the malware gives the attacker administrator access to the WordPress dashboard.
Full admin.
Full admin. And what's really worrying is how they use the WordPress REST API. Think of that as like the remote control for the website.
Ah, okay. So they can manipulate things from afar?
Precisely. They use it to inject malicious PHP code.
Yeah.
Often they stick it right into the theme's header file, or they might clear the cache from caching plugins to make sure their malicious stuff shows up immediately. It gives them huge control over what the site does and shows.
That's bad. And I think I read it's also designed to be persistent. Like it doesn't just run once.
That's correct. It's built to stick around. It pings a command and control server that's the attacker's base, letting them know it's active.
Checks in, basically.
Yep. And it can copy itself into other places on the web server. Plus, it often injects malicious JavaScript into the site's pages.
What does the JavaScript usually do?
Often, it's used to serve unwanted ads to visitors. That can actually be one of the first visible signs that something's wrong. But the really clever part is the persistence mechanism.
Okay.
There's usually a malicious wp-cron.php file involved. WordPress uses wp-cron for scheduled tasks.
Yeah, like checking for updates or publishing scheduled posts.
Exactly. Well, this malicious version acts like a backdoor. So even if you find the fake plugin file and delete it,
it comes back.
the malicious wp-cron.php can reinstall and reactivate it the next time someone visits the site. It's designed to be really, really difficult to fully remove.
Ugh. So you clean it up, think you're safe, and then it just resurrects itself. Nasty. Any clues about who might be behind this particular campaign?
Well, researchers looked at the code itself,
Yeah.
and there were some comments and internal messages written in Russian.
Ah.
So the suspicion is that it's Russian-speaking threat actors. Now,
Mhm.
you always have to be a bit careful with attribution based just on language.
Sure, it could be a false flag, I guess.
It could be, but it's, a fairly strong indicator in this case. It points towards that direction.
Right. It definitely shows these threats are global. And, I mean, WordPress users have had a rough time lately, haven't they? This isn't the only thing targeting them.
Oh, absolutely not. WordPress is a huge target just because it's so popular. Alongside this fake plugin, we've also seen things like web skimmers.
Stealing credit card info.
Exactly. One used a fake domain, something like italicfonts.org, trying to look like a legitimate font provider to siphon off payment details from checkout pages.
Even fonts aren't safe.
Apparently not. And then there was a more complicated attack aimed at Magento sites, another e-commerce platform. That one used multiple stages of JavaScript malware to steal all sorts of Data, cards, logins, you name it.
So different motives, different methods.
Right. And we've also seen attackers just injecting Google AdSense code into WordPress sites to make money from ads displayed on compromised sites.
Huh. Just straight up ad fraud.
Yep. And even fake CAPI CHAs, the prove your human boxes,
Yeah.
that, if solved, actually install Node.js backdoors onto the server. It's a whole ecosystem out there.
Man, it sounds like a minefield for anyone running a website. So based on this latest fake plugin threat, what should WordPress admins be actively looking for? What are the red flags?
Okay, good question. There are a few key things, indicators of compromise, or IOCs. First, you definitely want to scrutinize your wp-cron.php file. Compare it to a known good version if you can.
Check for weird code.
Exactly. Same goes for your theme's header.php file. Look for anything unfamiliar or suspicious added there.
Okay. What else?
Check your website's access logs. Look for specific telltale strings, things like emergency login, check plugin, URL change, or the word key. Seeing those could mean the malware has been active.
Got it. Logs are crucial.
Always. And perhaps most importantly, be super careful about the plugins you install. Only use plugins from well-known, reputable developers and sources. If something seems too good to be true or it's from an unknown source, just don't install it.
Basic hygiene, but more critical than ever.
Absolutely. Vet your plugins carefully.
Okay. Let's shift gears a bit. From website plugins to something with maybe broader privacy implications. This Indian court order about Proton Mail, that definitely caught my eye.
Yes, that's a significant development. The High Court of Karnataka, that's a state in India, has ordered internet service providers across the country to block access to Proton Mail.
The entire service. Wow. Why?
It stems from a complaint filed by a design firm. They allege that some of their employees received really offensive emails described as obscene, abusive, vulgar, and including AI-generated deepfakes sent through Proton Mail accounts.
Okay, so the issue is the content being sent via the platform, not like a hack of Proton Mail itself.
Precisely. The court action is based on the alleged misuse of the service. They invoked a part of India's IT Act, Section 69A, which gives the government power to block online content for reasons like national security, public order, or preventing incitement to commit offenses.
And Proton Mail is obviously known for its end-to-end encryption and privacy focus. Did that factor in?
It seems central to the issue. According to reports, the company that complained said Proton Mail wouldn't provide details about who sent the offensive emails, citing their privacy policy and Swiss law.
Right. They're based in Switzerland.
Correct. Now, as of when this was reported, Proton Mail was apparently still accessible in India. We haven't seen a big public statement from Proton about this specific order yet.
Has Proton Mail run into issues like this in India before? It feels vaguely familiar.
Yes, you're right. There was talk last year, I believe, about a potential ban because hoax bomb threats were allegedly sent using their service.
Oh, okay.
At that time, Proton Mail stated pretty clearly that they oppose illegal use of their platform, but they have to operate within the framework of Swiss law.
Which limits what they can share with foreign governments, right?
Exactly. Under Swiss law, they have limitations on directly sharing user data with foreign authorities. However, they are obligated to respond to legal orders from Swiss authorities.
So Swiss authorities could potentially get involved and then share info internationally.
That's the pathway, yes. If Swiss law enforcement gets a valid order, they can compel Proton to provide whatever limited data they might have, which could then be shared through official international legal assistance channels. It really highlights that tension, doesn't it?
Yeah, the clash between strong privacy commitments and the demands of law enforcement in different countries. It's complicated.
Yes, complicated.
Yeah.
Especially for encrypted services operating globally, different laws, different expectations. It's an ongoing challenge.
Okay, let's move to another complex area. State-level actors, potentially. Nebulous Mantis. That's quite a name.
It is evocative, isn't it? Nebulous Mantis, they also go by other names like Sigagar, Cuba, Storm 0978, quite a few actually, is identified as a Russian-speaking cyber espionage group.
Espionage, so intelligence gathering.
That seems to be the primary goal. They've been particularly active since about mid-2022 using a specific tool, a remote access Trojan, or RAT, called Romcom.
Romcom, RAT, okay.
Yeah.
And you mentioned they're sophisticated. What makes them stand out?
Well, it's a few things. The Romcom RA itself uses some pretty advanced techniques to avoid detection.
Like what?
It uses what we call living off the land tactics. That means it tries to use legitimate tools already built into the Windows operating system to do its dirty work.
Ah, so it blends in better. Less likely to trigger antivirus immediately.
Exactly. It also encrypts its communications back to the command and control server, making that traffic harder to spot. And the group behind it, Nebulous Mantis, they're quite skilled at maintaining their infrastructure. They use so-called bulletproof hosting providers.
Services that tend to ignore takedown requests.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Places like LuxHost and IESA have been mentioned. This gives them more stable command centers. And that infrastructure is apparently managed by another entity tracked as LRVA 290. So there are layers here.
Right. Sounds organized. Who are they typically going after? You said espionage, so governments,
Yeah.
military.
Their targeting profile is quite specific, yeah. It points towards strategic intelligence goals. They've hit critical infrastructure sectors, government agencies, political figures, and importantly, organizations related to NATO defense.
Okay, that definitely paints a picture. How does an attack usually start? How do they get that Romcom RA onto a system?
The typical entry point is spear phishing. Not just random spam, but targeted emails crafted to look convincing to specific individuals or organizations.
With malicious attachments or links?
Usually links, often disguised to look like documents. Like the target clicks the link, it starts a chain reaction that downloads and runs the initial Romcom RAT component.
And then it phones home.
Right. That first piece connects to the C2 server. Interestingly, it can then download additional payloads using something called IPFS, the Interplanetary File System.
IPFS, that's the decentralized file sharing thing, right?
That's the one. Using IPFS can make the malware components harder to block because they aren't hosted in one central place. The initial RAT can also just execute commands directly or deploy the main final stage malware, which is written in C++ tray.
And what does that final stage do?
That establishes a more persistent connection back to the C2, waits for instructions, and downloads further modules as needed. A big focus seems to be stealing data from web browsers, cookies, saved passwords, history, that sort of thing.
I noticed a detail in the reports about them checking the system's time zone. Why would they do that?
Yeah, that's an interesting bit of tradecraft. They use a standard Windows command, sutil, to find out the local time zone of the infected machine.
Why bother?
Well, it could help them tailor their activities. Maybe operate only during the victim's off hours to reduce chances of being noticed. Or it could help them understand the target's geographic location or operational schedule better. It's a small detail, but it shows attention to operational security.
Right. Blending in again. So once they're in and established, what kind of damage or data theft are we talking about? What can Romcom actually do?
Oh, it's pretty capable. It's designed for spying. It can harvest credentials, passwords, tokens, etc. It does detailed system reconnaissance, finding out everything about the infected computer.
Mapping the environment.
Exactly. It can enumerate Active Directory, which helps them understand the whole network structure in an organization. It can move laterally, spreading from the first machine to others on the network. And of course, its main job, collecting data. Files, credentials, configuration details, even backups of Outlook email data.
So pretty much anything valuable.
Anything that might contain intelligence, yeah.
Yeah.
And they often manage all this through a fairly sophisticated C2 panel on their end.
Looking at the whole picture, the tools, sophistication, the evasion tactics, the targeting, the infrastructure, it really points towards serious resources, doesn't it? Like state backing.
It strongly suggests this, yes. Or, at the very least, a very well-funded and organized cybercriminal group operating at a similar level. The level of operational discipline, the focus on high-value intelligence targets. It fits the profile of state-sponsored espionage operations. This isn't casual hacking.
Right. It feels very deliberate. Now, there was also mention of a group called Ruthless Mantis. Any relation? Same people.
That's another group highlighted by the same researchers, ProDaft. Ruthless Mantis seems primarily focused on financial gain, though. They're more into ransomware and double extortion, stealing data and encrypting systems.
Ah, so different motivations. Nebulous is spies, Ruthless is robbers, basically.
That's a decent simplification, yeah.
While Nebulous Mantis is after secrets, Ruthless Mantis is after cash. Whether they're connected, maybe sharing some tools or infrastructure, or just observed by the same researchers isn't perfectly clear, but their main goals seem distinct.
Okay, and one last thing on the Mantis groups, this Operation Deceptive Prospect. Using customer feedback portals for phishing sounds. It was quite clever and worrying. That specific Romcom campaign targeted organizations in the UK, retail, hospitality, even critical infrastructure.
How did the feedback portal thing work?
They would submit messages through the public contact us or feedback forms on the target organization's website. These messages might look like customer complaints or maybe job applications.
Okay.
And embedded in the message would be a link supposedly to supporting documents or photos, but actually hosted on fake Google Drive or Microsoft OneDrive login pages they controlled.
Ah, bypassing email filters that way.
Exactly. Because the email is coming from the company's own website form, it might bypass some security checks. And the links look legitimate-ish, pointing to cloud storage.
Yeah.
It's a really crafty way to get the initial phishing link past defenses and in front of an employee.
Wow. Shows how attackers are always innovating on the social engineering side, too. You have to be wary of every channel.
You really do. Constant vigilance is key.
Okay, let's cover our final big topic for the week. Some worrying news for users of SonicWall security appliances. Sounds like older vulnerabilities are coming back to bite.
That's right. SonicWall confirmed that 2 vulnerabilities, which they had already released patches for, are now being actively exploited in the wild.
Meaning attackers are actually using them in real attacks right now.
Correct. The specific flaws are CVE 2023-44221, which is a command injection bug, and CVE 2024-38475, which relates to improper character escaping in the Apache web server component used by these devices.
And which SonicWall products are we talking about here?
These affect the SMA 100 series secure mobile access appliances, specifically the models SMA 200, 210, 400, 410, and the virtual version, the 500V.
Okay. And there are patches available.
Yes, absolutely. That's the crucial point. SonicWall has issued firmware updates, version 10.2.1.1062 and higher fixes the first CDE, NAT 44221, and version 10.1.1475SV, and higher fixes the second one, that's 38475.
So step one for anyone running those devices, check your firmware version immediately.
Immediately. And update if you're not on a patch version, because SonicWall says attackers are chaining these 2 vulnerabilities together.
Using them in combination? How?
They seem to be using the Apache flaw, CVE 2024-38475, first to get unauthorized access to read files on the appliance. Then, they use that access, or information gained from it, to exploit the command injection flaw, CVE 2023-44221.
And command injection lets them run their own code on the device.
Essentially, yes. Which can ultimately lead to session hijacking, meaning the attackers could potentially take over legitimate user sessions and gain access to the internal network resources that the SMA appliance is supposed to protect, all without needing passwords.
Oof. That bypasses the whole point of the secure access appliance. I assume CISA is aware of this.
Oh, yes. CISA, the U.S. Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, has added both of these CVEs to its known exploited vulnerabilities catalog, the KEV list.
Which basically puts everyone on high alert.
Right. It confirms these are being actively used in attacks. And it sets a deadline May 22nd, 2025, in this case for U.S. federal agencies to patch them. It really underlines the seriousness of the threat.
And I also heard there's a proof of concept exploit out there now. Does that make things worse?
It definitely escalates the risk, yes. A publicly available proof of concept, PEC, provides a ready-made recipe for how to carry out the attack.
Lowers the bar for attackers.
Exactly. Less skilled actors can now potentially use this exploit chain. We usually see a spike in attacks after a functional PDC is released.
And what are security researchers saying about these flaws themselves? Were they particularly complex?
Actually, the opposite. The researchers at Watchtower Labs, who analyzed and published details on the exploit chain, described them as relatively trivial.
Trivial for an enterprise security product.
That was their assessment. They pointed out that the Apache flaw, NAGIC 384-705, is in a very common web server component, and the command injection NAGIC 44221 was, in their words, simple. They expressed some disappointment that such basic issues persist in security appliances, and noted that exploitation seems to have been happening for a while before it became widely known.
Yeah, that's not great. It highlights the need for really rigorous testing by vendors.
Absolutely. And timely patching, of course.
And you know, it feels like we talk about SonicWall vulnerabilities fairly often. This isn't the first time they've had actively exploited flaws crop up, is it?
Unfortunately, no. It has been a recurring theme. Just recently, CISA also added another older SonicWall SMA 100 flaw, CVE 2021-2035, to the KEV list because it was seeing active exploitation.
Right.
And earlier this year, there was that critical zero day, their SMA 1000 gateways being hit. Plus, going back further, issues with firewall authentication bypass. It really underscores how critical these network edge devices are as targets.
They're the gateway, literally.
Exactly. And administrators have to stay on top of vendor advisories and patch these infrastructure devices super promptly. They are climb targets.
Definitely a stark reminder. Proactive patching isn't optional, it's essential. Well, that pretty much wraps up our main topics for this week's Security Sunday Deep Dive. It's clear things are certainly not slowing down.
No, indeed. We've seen the whole spectrum again, haven't we? From that potentially state-sponsored espionage with Nebulous Mantis targeting critical sectors,
Right, the high-end
down
stuff.
to widespread threats hitting common platforms like WordPress, and then the crucial need to patch fundamental infrastructure like those Sonic Wall appliances. It
Mm.
really shows how layered and constant the threat landscape is.
Absolutely. You need security awareness everywhere, from your website admin to your network engineers to your end users clicking links.
Couldn't agree more. Vigilance across the board is the only way.
So hopefully, listening today has given you a clearer picture of some of the significant threats from the past week, the tactics attackers are using, and who they're targeting.
Yeah, hopefully some actionable insights there.
Right, and maybe something to think about as we finish up. Reflecting on all this, what steps are you taking, or maybe should you be taking, to strengthen your own digital security? Whether that's your personal email, your company's website, or the entire corporate network. Something to ponder.
Good question to end on. Stay safe out there.
Indeed. Thanks for tuning in to Security Sunday. We'll be back next week with another deep dive.